My mom convinced me to cancel my wedding because she wanted to marry my fiancé herself. If you had told me a year ago that the woman who raised me, the woman who read me bedtime stories and wiped away my childhood tears, would one day stand at the altar with my fiancé, I would have laughed in your face. But here I am. Laughing is the last thing I'm doing. I've debated for months whether to share this. It's a story so unreal, so grotesquely twisted, that even I still wake up some mornings wondering if I hallucinated the whole thing. But it happened. Every ugly, excruciating detail. So here it is. All of it. And I'll start from the beginning, before things went to hell. My name's Emily. I'm 27 now. This story began when I was 25 and madly in love with a man named Aaron. Aaron was everything I'd ever wanted in a partner. Kind, patient, charming, but humble. He was 6 years older than me. A quiet guy who preferred weekends at home over clubs or chaos. He worked in finance, loved dogs, and never raised his voice in anger. We met at a bookstore. Literally, I bumped into him in the self-help aisle while looking for a book on imposter syndrome. He handed me the exact book I was reaching for, smiled, and said, "It helped me too." That's how it started, from a tiny, accidental spark. 2 years later, we were engaged. My mom, Victoria, is what people would call elegant. She's always been the kind of woman who turned heads, poised, polished, articulate. The kind of woman who walks into a room and somehow manages to make everyone feel small just by being there. Growing up, I thought she was perfect. Everyone did. But when you live with her long enough, you learn the difference between grace and control. My mom was a master manipulator. She didn't yell, she sighed. She didn't punish, she withdrew love. You didn't disobey her because you were afraid. You obeyed because she made you feel like disobeying her was hurting her. She had that kind of power. When Aaron met my mom, I was nervous. I had always known her approval came with strings, and I was terrified she wouldn't like him. But surprisingly, she did. In fact, she loved him. Too much. At first, I was relieved. She praised him constantly. Such a gentleman. Finally, someone with ambition. He speaks so eloquently. She invited him over without telling me. Texted him individually. Just to ask for advice. Asked him to join her on errands, since you have a good eye for suits. I laughed it off. I told myself she was just excited for me, that she was trying, finally, to be involved in my life. But something inside me didn't sit right. We got engaged in September. By October, we had a date. June 18th. I started planning immediately. Venues, flowers, guest lists. And of course, my mother volunteered herself as wedding coordinator. I planned mine. I know what I'm doing, she insisted. You don't need to pay someone. I didn't want her involved, but Aaron convinced me. She means well, he said. So I let her in. I wish I hadn't. The first strange thing was the guest list. She insisted we invite several people I didn't know. Friends from her yoga group, a retired lawyer she used to date, some guy named Peter she met at a wine tasting in 2013. She said they were essential connections and it would look bad if they weren't there. I said no. She cried. The second red flag was her reaction to the dress. I'd found the perfect one, simple, silk, vintage-inspired. When I showed her, she frowned. It's not very flattering, sweetheart. You've got curves, why hide them? I told her it made me feel beautiful. She shrugged and said, if you say so. Then she scheduled another bridal appointment for me without telling me. I only found out when the shop called confirm. 3 months before the wedding, she sat me down with the most serious face I'd seen. Emily, I love you. You know that, right? I nodded, guarded. I don't want you to make a mistake. What mistake? Aaron, he's not as committed as you think. She said she had a feeling, that he had hesitations, that when she brought up long-term plans, he seemed unsure. I asked for examples. She gave none. Then came the kicker. You know, a lot of men propose out of pressure. It doesn't mean they're ready. I laughed awkwardly. You sound like you want me to call the whole thing off. She didn't say anything. She just blinked, then said, maybe just slow down. Postpone. I left that day with an ache in my chest. Over the next few weeks, Aaron became distant. Nothing dramatic, just subtle, less affectionate, less talkative. He stopped planning wedding tasks with me. When I asked why, he'd say, "Work's been stressful." I chalked it up to nerves. But it was more than that. One night, I found a message on his iPad. From her. Her. My mother. It wasn't overtly romantic, but it was intimate. "I'm always here if you need to talk. I know things feel uncertain, but don't let guilt force your hand. I care about you, more than you know." I stared at the screen for 5 minutes, feeling my body buzz with confusion. I asked him about it. He said she was just being maternal, that she was trying to help. I believed him. 1 month before the wedding, Aaron came home and sat me down. His hands were shaking. "I think we need to postpone." It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Postpone? Why? He didn't give a real answer. I need more time. I'm not ready. I'm sorry. I felt like I was underwater. My mother showed up the next morning with muffins and an iced coffee. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. But maybe it's for the best. At least now you'll know if it's real." I asked her if she'd known he was going to cancel. She looked me in the eye and said, "I had a feeling." She left smiling. 3 months later, I found out from a tag Instagram post. A photo, Aaron, in a tuxedo, holding hands, with my mother, in a champagne-colored wedding dress, smiling like she'd just won a war. Caption, "Some things are meant to be, even if the path isn't perfect." Update, the moment I saw the photo, something inside me ruptured, not snapped. Snap would imply a clean break. No, this was a splintering, a fracturing, a slow, awful realization that my entire life had been built around a lie I hadn't seen until it stood in front of me in a tuxedo and a wedding dress. I stared at the screen for 5, maybe 10 minutes. Just staring. I reread the caption. "Some things are meant to be, even if the path isn't perfect." I zoomed in on their hands, their rings, her nails, her smirk, his glassy-eyed smile. I couldn't breathe. My phone slipped from my hand. That night, I threw up twice and didn't sleep at all. By morning, I had 12 missed calls from relatives, 6 from former friends, and 1 voicemail from my dad, the only person in the family who hadn't known what was happening. His voice was shaking. "Emily, I just saw the photos. I don't understand. Call me when you can. I'm here, okay? I love you." They didn't tell people the truth. In their version, Aaron and I realized we weren't right for each other, parted on good terms, and found an unexpected connection with someone close to the family. My mom was even quoted in a magazine feature for non-traditional weddings in your 50s. She said, "Love doesn't care about timing or rules or judgment. Sometimes you find it in the most surprising places." She made herself the victim of fate. People ate it up. Mutual friends? Mostly silent. A few sent messages like, "Wow, didn't expect that. Are you okay?" They said you gave them your blessing. My blood boiled. I didn't respond. I couldn't trust anyone. Every message felt like a trap, a test to see if I'd overreact. Some people celebrated them, called them a power couple, said age is just a number. Others disappeared entirely. My parents divorced when I was 11. My dad remarried, lives a quieter life, and doesn't keep tabs on my mom's drama. When he found out, he was livid. I always knew she was controlling. But this is sick. He offered to fly me out to stay with him for a while. I declined. I didn't want to run. Not yet. But his support was grounding. Once the shock wore off, the memories came flooding in. All the little signs. How she'd compliment Aaron in front of me, but subtly put me down. How she encouraged our arguments. How she'd accidentally show up when Aaron and I had plans. How she insisted on being in the wedding slideshow. How she booked her own bridal hair trial as a joke. How I thought I was imagining it all. A week after the wedding, I received a letter from a law office regarding bridal costs previously incurred by Victoria Marshall. Yes, my mother. She wanted me to pay her back for my own canceled wedding expenses. Things like the deposit for the venue, the catering tasting, and the dress she insisted on buying. I couldn't even respond. I sent it straight to my lawyer, a woman I used to work with at a nonprofit. She laughed out loud when she read it. "Oh, honey," she said, "we're not just fighting this. We're going on the offensive." I didn't want to go nuclear. Not at first. But then I found the burner phone. Yes, a literal burner phone tucked away in the back of Aaron's old gym bag, which he left behind in my apartment. I almost threw it out, but something told me to check it. Inside, dozens of texts between him and my mother. Months and months of lies, manipulation, and worst of all, strategy. She coached him through the breakup, fed him lines, helped him time everything. She planned it like a takeover. One thread caught my eye. "Mom, just a few more weeks. She'll start to question things. Then we can finally stop sneaking around." Another, "Aaron, it's hard being around her. I feel guilty." "Mom, don't. She's a child. She never really knew you like I do." That was it. That was the moment I snapped. No more grief. No more silence. I wanted justice. No, I wanted vengeance. Step 1, screenshot everything. Step 2, file a small claims lawsuit against her for emotional distress, wedding sabotage and defamation, nothing massive but symbolic, loud, public. Step 3, send the screenshots selectively to a few curious journalists who'd feature her wedding story. No accusations, just context. Step 4, find exactly where their honeymoon fund had come from. Spoiler, partially from a wedding gift that my friends and I had set up during my original engagement. Step 5, let the world burn. It started small. A blogger, mid-tier, wedding-focused, ran a new story. Golden bride or grim manipulator. New details emerge about viral mother of the bride-turned-bride tale. They didn't name me directly, but they didn't have to. They included messages from anonymous sources close to the ex-fiancé's original engagement, hinting at grooming, emotional abuse, and manipulation. Comments exploded. Half the internet went feral. The other half doubled down on their defense. But the tide was turning. And I hadn't even said a word yet. I wrote my mother one last message. Subject, I see you now. You spent your life sculpting me into something small enough to fit in your shadow. And I let you, for years, because I wanted to believe you loved me. But what you did, that wasn't love. It was conquest. You stole my wedding, my partner, my friends. You tried to steal my story. But you forgot something. I know you. I know how to hurt you without raising my voice, without laying a finger, without ever being seen. And I'm going to do it. Quietly. Completely. Watch your throne, Victoria. I'm coming for it. Update. Revenge doesn't need to be loud. The best kind? It's surgical. You'd be surprised how many people were secretly rooting for me. Ex-friends, estranged cousins, even my mom's former co-workers. Turns out, Victoria had a long history of stepping on people to climb higher, emotionally, professionally, and socially. She burned bridges quietly. People never spoke up because she wore pearls while doing it. Until now, all I had to do was whisper. Want to help me take her down? They lined up like soldiers. A former college roommate of mine, Haley, runs a mid-sized wedding blog. I reached out to her first. I gave her everything. The screenshots, the messages, the burner phone photos, the legal demand for me to reimburse the canceled wedding. She wrote the piece like poetry. Title: The Wedding She Stole, How One Mother Crossed a Line No One Expected. Subtitle: When Ambition, Obsession, and Betrayal Collide. It exploded. Reddit picked it up. So did TikTok. Within days, someone even did a dramatic reading of the article over moody piano music on YouTube. It got 400K views in a week. People were horrified. The tides turned. My mother sits on 2 local charity boards, one for women's health, one for inner-city youth mentorship. Guess who got a very respectful, anonymously submitted PDF containing the screenshots and legal letters? Both boards. They launched internal reviews. One quietly asked for her resignation. The other removed her from their website without a word. She lost both positions within a month. I didn't even have to show up. I wasn't done with him. He may have been my mother's pawn, but he made his choices, too. So I dug deeper. Remember the honeymoon fund? Half of it was sourced from wedding gifts my friends contributed when Aaron and I were still engaged. We had set up a joint registry. I tracked 5 major contributors and showed them what happened. They filed refund requests. All of them. Then I sent that registry history to the travel company that booked their honeymoon cruise. Guess who got hit with a credit card dispute? And guess who started getting calls about unresolved transactions 2 days into their Mediterranean honeymoon? Their trip ended early. Victoria had a reputation for being self-made, but I knew better. She was propped up by men, and Aaron was supposed to be her retirement plan. Except I made sure that rug got pulled. A contact of mine in real estate flagged a cosign investment Aaron had made in Victoria's name, a short-term luxury condo flip. Once the blog article hit, the prospective buyer backed out. So did the interior designer, and the loan terms changed. Suddenly, their money was tied up. Aaron, who always lived just above his means, started feeling the pinch. I heard from someone close to them that he'd started skipping lunches to cut back. Delicious. I didn't want to see her again, but she showed up, unannounced, outside my apartment building. Hair done, makeup perfect, pearl earrings in, like she was walking onto a stage. I almost turned her away, but then I saw her hands, shaking, and I thought, she's crumbling. Let me watch. I let her in. She didn't sit down. Emily, she began, I know you're hurt, but this is getting out of hand. I said nothing. Aaron and I are being harassed. People are calling me names. Sponsors are pulling out of partnerships. Good, I said. She flinched. Why are you doing this? What do you want from me? I smiled. Nothing. That's the point. You're ruining your own reputation, too. No, Mom. You already ruined mine. I'm just making sure you finally wear yours. She stared at me for a long time. Then she whispered something I'll never forget. You'll regret this. I leaned forward. No, you will. Every day. For the rest of your pathetic life. And then I shut the door in her face. Instead of mourning June 18th, what should have been my wedding day, I hosted a Break the Curse party. Everyone wore black. We burned old bridesmaid mock-ups, watched bad reality TV, and toasted to dodge bullets. Even my dad flew in. We danced to Single Ladies, Before He Cheats, and yes, someone made a playlist called Hell Hath No Fury, Emily's version. For the first time in months, I felt alive. A few days later, I received an anonymous Instagram tip from someone who worked at Aaron's company. He's been called into 2 separate HR meetings about his relationship with your mom. She tried to leverage it for a board seat. It's blowing up. Just thought you'd like to know. I did. I started a blog under pseudonym. Each post, a journal entry, a reflection, a piece of the real story. I didn't link names. I didn't point fingers. But people knew. It grew fast. Soon, women were sharing their stories about narcissistic mothers, boundary-crossing exes, and family betrayal. I built something from the rubble, and it was mine. I hired a graphic designer. We put together a glossy, well-edited printed magazine. Title, The Wedding She Stole. Subheadline, An Autopsy of Motherhood, Control, and Obsession. I printed exactly 1 copy. Had it hand-delivered to their house in a ribbon-wrap box. A gift. Update. Let me be very clear about something. I didn't destroy them. They destroyed themselves. I just handed them the mirror and then stepped out of the room. I never saw their reaction. But 2 days after it was delivered, Aaron blocked me on everything. My mother tried to call once. I let it ring. Voicemail. Nothing but a long exhale, then a click. A few weeks later, someone posted to a small local subreddit. Anyone know what happened to that weird mother-son couple who got married last year? Saw the guy crying in a bar in Midtown last night. Wild stuff. I laughed. Cold? Maybe. But I'd spent too long crying alone in silence while people praise him for finding love in an unexpected place. They were finally getting what they gave. One of Aaron's former co-workers messaged me anonymously. He told me Aaron had taken a leave of absence, that HR had strongly recommended it after multiple complaints about both his relationship and his wife's attempts to influence corporate decisions. Another anonymous message came from a woman who'd met Victoria years ago at a mentorship event. She had idolized her until reading my blog. "Your story cracked something open in me," she wrote. "You gave words to things I've been ashamed of for years. Thank you." It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about breaking a cycle. 4 months after their wedding, I got a message from Aaron. Burner number. No name. Just a simple text. "I made a mistake." I stared at it for 5 minutes, then typed, "So did I. I trusted you." I blocked the number. The last thing I heard, and this came from my aunt, the only one in the family still talking to me, was that Victoria had been quiet lately. She'd stepped back from social circles, claimed to be reevaluating her boundaries. The truth? People were distancing themselves. No one wants to be associated with the woman who married her daughter's fiancé. She became that woman. A whispered punchline at charity events. Exactly the thing she spent her whole life avoiding. My therapist, who I now see weekly, said something that stuck with me. "You're grieving a relationship that never really existed. You loved the idea of a mother who protected you. She loved the image of a daughter who reflected her. What happens when both illusions fall apart?" I said, "You grow up." People asked if I planned to forgive her. Some even suggested I meet with her, get closure. But I already had it. It didn't come from a conversation, or an apology, or some dramatic movie-style reckoning. It came from silence, from choosing to cut the cord and let the dead weight drop. Forgiveness isn't a moral obligation, especially when someone weaponizes love. Last month, I officiated my best friend Olivia's wedding. It was small in her backyard, with fairy lights and homemade sangria. When she read her vows, she choked up and asked me to hold her hand. I did. In that moment, I realized this is what love looks like. Not possession, not performance, not manipulation, just presence. The blog I started now has over 80K subscribers. I write under a pseudonym still. Not because I'm hiding, but because I don't need to attach my real name to my past to give it power. I speak at small events now about emotional abuse, family estrangement, and rebuilding identity after betrayal. Sometimes people ask, "Do you regret what you did?" And I say, I regret trusting them, not exposing them. Mom, you taught me everything I needed to know about manipulation, but you also taught me how to survive it. You tried to keep me small, so I would never outshine you. But now, even your shadow can't touch me. I hope you look in the mirror every day and wonder what might have happened if you chose to be my mother instead of my rival. That wonder? That's your punishment. You gave me life, but I gave myself freedom.